What a fantastic end. Twilight Princess is a great game with a gripping story, great pace and a perfectly sized world to explore. With the 3D Zelda games gradually becoming more and more story driven, I feel this is the game that hits the balance just right with a fantastic scattering of story elements throughout the game. I feel that the pacing of Twilight Princess is excellent as well, with the gap between dungeons very well spaced both throughout the game and throughout the story. The expositional dumps are also quite nicely spaced and not too much at once. When I first played the game, I felt that Ganondorf felt somewhat wrenched in and that Zant should have remained the big bad guy. But I've come to at least partially disagree with this sentiment, as it does fit with the story, but it's only obtusely alluded to until much too late in the story. I do feel that the game as a whole struggles with tone throughout, and Zant is a good example of this. He starts the game as this quiet, menacing evil who gradually loses the mystery surrounding him and goes completely crazy by the time you actually fight him. This completely ruins the character for me. I feel that it would have created a much more consistent tone if maybe Zant had been crazy from the beginning, but for Ganondorf to be revealed as the big bad from much earlier for that menacing atmosphere. On the subject of tone, Twilight Princess is a game that starts with absolutely oodles of atmosphere, rivaling Majora's Mask, with the Twilight providing massive amounts of the most amazingly insidious atmosphere that I appreciate very much, coupled with a feeling of incompetence against an overwhelmingly competent foe. This continues through the first act of the game until the Master Sword is obtained, but once the Master Sword is in your hand and there is no more Twilight and Link has gained a level of competency that starts to rival the enemy, the tone shifts sharply towards a much more generic Zelda game. The game loses a great deal of its uniqueness at that moment, and I feel that is a great shame. The controls for Twilight Princess utilised the motion controls of the Nintendo Wii fairly well and worked quite well overall. I felt the combat felt interesting and varied, partially as a result. The mixture of new motion mechanics met with some of the older parry mechanics from Wind Waker made for combat that actually rarely felt like I was waiting for something to happen, even when I actually was. The same cannot be said, however, for Wolf Link, who had an extremely limited moveset while in wolf form and had to wait every time he knocked an enemy to the ground for the enemy to stand back up before being able to attack again. I feel that if the combat as Wolf Link had been as solid as the fighting while in human form, the combat in this game would have been extremely good. The characterization in Twilight Princess overall is very poor, and all of the characters are either very unlikable or have no character whatsoever, even the ones that you're supposed to like. This completely ruins a lot of the emotion that the player is clearly supposed to feel during some of the cutscenes, and it's hard to feel sorry for a character that you care nothing about. One notable exception, however, is Midna, who is by far the most developed character in a Zelda game to date, Breath of the Wild not included. She is so utterly lovable right from the get-go and has a character arc that makes me as a player genuinely care about her fate by the end. She is also by far the most helpful and least annoying of Link's companions. Although she does occasionally interject with something obvious or that you've already figured out, because she's such a strong character, it doesn't feel like it's breaking the fourth wall, and it doesn't feel nearly as annoying as Fi or Navi, for example. She also has functions within the game, such as changing Link between wolf and human form, warping, and the B combat mechanic while in wolf form. If Nintendo could take a leaf out of their own book in the future and make more companions like Midna, I think everyone would be very grateful. Let's not even mention Fi at this point. Overall, I love Twilight Princess for the beautiful story that is told surrounding Link and Midna, but the game drifts far enough into generic territory that I think it's forgotten by a lot of adventure game fans that maybe aren't as into Zelda as I am. With solid temples, world elements, combat, and a fantastic story, I recommend this game to anyone who likes to be teleported to another world when they play a video game.